The Truth Behind the Shattering, a sleep documentary on the lore of Elden Ring. Opening, settling in. Welcome. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let the weight of the day begin to dissolve, the way morning mist dissolves over a quiet lake. Tonight, we are going to travel together into a world of ancient myth, a world of golden light and shattered rings, of gods who walked among mortals, and a land that still echoes with the memory of their fall. This is the story of the lands between and the truth behind the shattering. You do not need to follow every name. You do not need to hold every thread. Let the words wash over you like a warm tide. If your eyes grow heavy, let them close. The story will continue whether you're listening or drifting. That is the nature of stories told in the dark. They belong to the dreamer as much as the teller. So settle in. Let the silence between each sentence be as meaningful as the words themselves. We begin where all great myths begin, with the void and what came to fill it. Part 1. The Greater Will and the Erdtree. Long before the lands between had a name, there was only the crucible, a swirling, formless wellspring of life. All things emerged from it. All things would one day return. It was neither good nor evil. It simply was, the way gravity simply is, the way the tide simply turns. Then from beyond the stars, from a place so distant that no mortal language could describe it, an entity called the Greater Will turned its gaze upon this young world. The Greater Will was not a god in the way we imagine gods, not a figure sitting upon a throne, not a voice booming from the heavens. It was more like an intention, a direction, a vast silent will that reached across the cosmos and planted something at the heart of the lands between. That something was the Elden Ring. Imagine, if you will, a structure made not of metal or stone, but of pure principle, a lattice of fundamental laws that governed how life and death, order and chaos, light and shadow would interact with one another. The Elden Ring was the architecture of reality itself, a set of golden rules etched into the fabric of the world. And at its centre, growing from the ring like a tree from its roots, stood the Erdtree. The Erdtree. Even now, in the quiet of this room, you can picture it, a tree of impossible scale, its trunk wider than any cathedral, its branches stretching across the sky like veins of light. In the age before the shattering, the Erdtree glowed with a soft, warm radiance, and its leaves shed golden particles that drifted down like perpetual snow. The people of the lands between believed that the Erdtree was the source of all grace, that to be touched by its light was to be chosen, blessed, loved by something greater than yourself. And perhaps they were right. The Greater Will, through the Elden Ring, through the Erdtree, gave the lands between a kind of order. There was life, and there was death, and there was a rhythm between them, steady as a heartbeat. The Erdtree's roots burrowed deep into the earth, and the souls of the departed were said to return to those roots, to be absorbed and reborn in an endless cycle. Death was not an ending, it was a homecoming. But the Greater Will did not tend this garden alone. It chose an emissary, a vessel through which its will could be expressed in the mortal world. It chose a god. It chose Marika. Let that name settle in the air for a moment. Marika, Queen Marika, the Eternal. She would become the most pivotal figure in the history of the lands between, the axis upon which everything turned. But before she was a queen, before she was a god, she was something else, a numen, a person from a distant land, one of a people who are said to be descendants of another world entirely. She was chosen, elevated, and given the impossible task of carrying the Elden Ring within her own body. She became the vessel, the living embodiment of the ring's power, and for a time, a long, golden, seemingly eternal time, she ruled. Part 2. Queen Marika and Radagon. To understand the shattering, you must first understand Marika, and to understand Marika, you must understand something deeply strange about her, something that even the scholars of the lands between struggled to explain. Marika had another self. His name was Radagon. They were not husband and wife in the ordinary sense, though they did marry. They were not two halves of a whole, though that is closer to the truth. They were, in some fundamental and perhaps unknowable way, the same being. Marika was the god. Radagon was the champion. Marika was the vessel of the Elden Ring. Radagon was the loyal servant of the Golden Order. They existed in the same body, perhaps at different times, perhaps simultaneously. The records are unclear, and maybe that ambiguity is the point. Think of it this way. Imagine a river that splits into two streams around a great stone, then merges again on the other side. For a while the two streams seem separate. They carve different paths. They have different speeds, different colours, but they are the same water. They come from the same source and they flow toward the same sea. Marika was radiant, imperious, and ultimately restless. She questioned things. She doubted. Radagon was steadfast, devoted, rigid in his faith. He never questioned. He never doubted. And this difference, this fracture within a single soul, may have been the crack that would eventually shatter everything. Before we speak of the breaking, let us speak of what was built. Radagon, in his early life, was not yet married to Marika. He was a great champion, a red-haired warrior who led armies and won wars. He first married Renala, the Queen of the Full Moon, ruler of the Academy of Raya Lucaria. It was a union that brought the magical kingdom of Leonia into the fold of the Golden Order, a political marriage perhaps, but one that produced children of extraordinary power. Their children, Radan and Rykard and Rani, would each go on to shape the destiny of the lands between in ways no one could have predicted. But eventually, Radagon left Renala. He left her with a great rune, a fragment of the Elden Ring itself, and he returned to the capital, to Leyndell, to the Erdtree. And there he married Marika, or rather, he merged with her, or returned to her. The exact nature of this reunion is one of the great mysteries of the lands between. What we know is this: after Radagon became one with Marika, the Golden Order reached its zenith. The Erdtree blazed brighter than ever. The laws of the world were fixed, crystallized, made absolute. Life and death followed strict rules. Those who lived in grace were blessed. Those who fell outside the Order's light were cast out, exiled or destroyed, and it was beautiful. For a time it was genuinely beautiful. The golden capital of Leyndell gleamed beneath the Erdtree's branches. Knights in shining armour rode through streets paved with light. Children played in meadows where golden leaves fell like blessings. The world made sense. There was order, there was peace, but peace, when it is imposed rather than earned, has a way of concealing fractures. And the fractures were already there, buried deep, hidden beneath layers of gold, but growing. Part 3. The Golden Order. Let us rest here for a moment and consider what the Golden Order truly was, because understanding it is essential to understanding why it had to fall. The Golden Order was not merely a government or a religion. It was a worldview, a complete and total explanation for how reality worked. Under the Golden Order, the Elden Ring governed all natural law. Death was managed, not eliminated. Souls flowed to the Erdtree and were recycled in a great cosmic wheel. The stars were held in place. The seasons turned predictably. Even the very concept of truth was defined by the Order. What the Golden Order declared to be true was, by definition, true. This kind of absolute certainty is comforting. It is the certainty of a child who believes their parents know everything. It is the certainty of a warm bed on a cold night. And for centuries, the people of the lands between lived in that certainty. They prayed to the Erdtree. They followed the two fingers, strange enigmatic beings who served as intermediaries between the greater will and the mortal world. They accepted the blessings of grace and trusted that the golden light would protect them. But certainty, when taken to its extreme, becomes a cage. The Golden Order did not merely describe reality, it dictated it. Things that did not fit within its framework were deemed heretical. Death, which the Order claimed to manage, became something to be feared and controlled. The natural cycle of life and death, which had once flowed freely from the crucible, was now regulated, filtered, and in some cases denied entirely. The misbegotten, beings whose bodies bore traces of the primordial crucible, with wings and tails and horns, were cast out and enslaved. Those who practiced death rites outside the Order's sanction were hunted. Even the stars, once free to move and prophesy, were held in place by the power of Radan, who literally held the stars still with his gravitational magic, freezing fate itself in amber. The Golden Order was magnificent, but it was also brittle, and anything brittle, given enough time and enough pressure, will break. There is an old idea, perhaps you've heard it in other forms, in other stories, that any system of order, no matter how well-intentioned, eventually produces its own opposite, that the brighter the light, the deeper the shadow it casts, that the tighter the grip, the more the thing you are holding wants to slip away. The Golden Order was the brightest light the world had ever known, and its shadows were correspondingly deep. In those shadows things grew, resentments, heresies, forbidden knowledge, old magic that predated the Erdtree. The Order tried to stamp them out, but shadows are not so easily dispelled. You cannot destroy a shadow by shining more light on it. You can only make it darker by comparison. There were those who questioned. There were those who whispered that the Order's light cast too deep a shadow. There were those who remembered the old ways, the ways of death, the ways of the crucible, the ways of the stars. And among those who questioned, the most dangerous was the one who had helped build the Order in the first place, Marika herself. Part 4. The Night of Black Knives. Now we come to the darkest chapter of this story, the night that changed everything, the night that cracked the golden world open like an egg and let the yolk of ruin spill across the land. It is called the Night of Black Knives. To understand it, you must first know about destined death. In the age of the Golden Order, true death, the kind of death from which there is no return, no rebirth through the Erdtree, was sealed away. It was locked behind a divine seal, kept from the world by the power of the Elden Ring and the god who carried it. People still died, of course. Their bodies failed. Their hearts stopped. But their souls returned to the Erdtree. Death was a passage, not an end. Destined death was different. Destined death was final. It was the one kind of death that the Golden Order could not manage, could not recycle, could not undo. And someone stole it. Someone forged weapons imbued with destined death. Black blades dark as obsidian that could kill not just the body, but the soul. And on a single, terrible night, those blades were used. The assassins who wielded them were the Black Knife assassins, Numen women, like Marika herself, their origins shrouded in mystery. They moved through the capital like shadows, silent and swift, and they struck at the Demigods, the children and descendants of Marika and Radagon, the heirs to the Golden Throne. And the one they killed, the one whose death sent shockwaves through every corner of the lands between, was Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn, first of the Demigods, the most beloved, the most radiant. He was golden in every sense, golden-haired, golden-hearted, golden-souled. He had befriended the ancient dragons, ending a war that had raged for generations. He was the pride of the Golden Order, the proof that the system worked, that grace truly blessed those it touched. And they killed him, but they did not merely kill him. Godwyn's body died, but his soul did not pass to the Erdtree. Instead, something unprecedented happened, something that should have been impossible under the laws of the Golden Order. His soul perished, but his body lived on. It did not decay in the normal way. It grew, it spread. It became something monstrous. A cancer of death spreading through the roots of the Erdtree, a prince of death blooming in the deep places of the earth, like a black flower. This was the first death of its kind. A soul without a body without a soul. The natural order, the very order that the Golden Order was supposed to protect, was broken. Death, which had been sealed away and managed and controlled, was now loose in the world, in a form no one had ever seen before. The golden leaves of the Erdtree began to fall more quickly. The light dimmed, just slightly, just enough that you might not notice if you weren't looking. But those who were looking noticed. Those who had always suspected that the Golden Order was fragile, that its perfection was a mask, they noticed. And somewhere, deep within the Erdtree, in the space where Marika and Radagon shared a single divine body, something shifted, something broke, or perhaps something that had been broken for a long time finally revealed itself. Part 5. Why Marika shattered the Elden Ring. This is the question at the heart of everything. Why? Why would a god destroy the very instrument of her own power? Why would the vessel of the Elden Ring shatter the ring itself? The scholars and prophets of the lands between have debated this for ages, and no single answer has ever been found satisfying. But let us sit with the possibilities gently, the way one sits with a candle flame, watching it flicker, not trying to control it. The first possibility is grief. Godwyn was Marika's child. Whatever else she was, god, vessel, conqueror, schemer, she was a mother. And her child was murdered in the most horrifying way imaginable. Not merely killed, but hollowed out, turned into something unrecognizable, left to rot in a living death beneath the roots of the very tree she was supposed to protect. Perhaps the grief was simply too much. Perhaps she looked at the Elden Ring, the source of all order, the system that was supposed to protect her children, and saw only the thing that had failed to save her son. And in her anguish, she raised her hammer and brought it down. The second possibility is rebellion. Marika, we are told, was not always a faithful servant of the greater will. She had doubts, she had questions. She sent her trusted shadow, Malekith, to seal away destined death, but perhaps she always knew that the seal was imperfect. Perhaps she had been planning for a very long time to break free of the greater will's control. The Knight of Black Knives may have been the catalyst, but the desire to shatter the ring may have been growing in her for centuries, a slow-burning fire that needed only the right spark. The third possibility is that the shattering was not an act of destruction, but of liberation. The Elden Ring, for all its beauty, was a set of rules imposed from outside, a cosmic bureaucracy dictated by a distant, alien will. Perhaps Marika came to believe that the lands between deserved to be free of those rules. Perhaps she believed that a shattered ring, its pieces scattered among the demigods, would allow a new order to emerge, one chosen by mortals rather than dictated by gods. Perhaps the shattering was not an ending, but a beginning, a brutal and necessary act of opening. And the fourth possibility, the one that whispers at the edges of the others, is that Marika and Radagon disagreed, that the fracture within their shared soul became unbearable, that Marika wanted to shatter the ring, and Radagon wanted to repair it, and that the final blow was a war within a single being, one hand raising the hammer, the other reaching out to stop it. We see evidence of this in the aftermath. When we eventually reach the Erdtree, we find Marika crucified within it, her body broken, pinned in place like a butterfly under glass. And Radagon is there too, emerging from the same body, desperately trying to mend what Marika broke, wielding the same hammer she used as a tool of repair. They are still one. They are still at war, and the ring between them is in fragments. Whatever the true reason, and perhaps all of these reasons are true simultaneously, layered upon one another like the rings of an ancient tree, the result was the same. Marika struck the Elden Ring. The ring shattered. Its fragments, the great runes, scattered across the lands, between like seeds thrown to the wind. And with that single act, the Golden Age ended. Part 6. The Shattering of the Ring. Let us be quiet for a moment and imagine what it would have been like to witness. You are standing in the capital city of Leyndell. The streets are quiet. It is evening, and the Erdtree above you is casting its usual warm glow, though perhaps, you have noticed that the glow has been dimmer lately. Perhaps you have heard rumours of something terrible happening among the demigods, whispers of a prince found dead in a way that should not be possible. Then you hear it, a sound like the world cracking in half. Not thunder, something deeper, something that comes from beneath the ground and above the sky simultaneously. The earth shakes, the golden light of the Erdtree flickers, surges, and then fragments. You see them, shards of the ring, burning like comets, streaking across the sky in every direction, falling to earth in distant lands. The Erdtree still stands, but its light is broken, scattered, incomplete, and you realise, with a creeping dread that settles into your bones like cold water, that the world you knew, the golden, ordered, comprehensible world, is gone. That is the shattering. Not a single moment, but a cascade, a fracture that rippled outward in every direction, through stone and sky and soul alike. The breaking of the ring sent shockwaves through every aspect of reality. The laws of nature, once stable, began to warp and fray. Death, no longer managed by the ring's power, began to behave erratically. The souls of the dead no longer flowed cleanly to the Erdtree. Some were trapped, some wandered, some were consumed. And into this broken world, the great runes fell, each one a fragment of the Elden Ring, each one carrying immense power, each one a piece of the puzzle that, if reassembled, might restore what was lost. The demigods, Marika's children, Radagon's children, and others who bore the blood of gods, each claimed a great rune. And with those runes in their hands, they did what mortals and gods alike have always done when presented with power and a vacuum of authority. They went to war. Part 7. The Demigod War. The Demigod War, known simply as the Shattering, sharing its name with the event that caused it, was not a single battle, but a sprawling, agonizing conflict that stretched across the entire lands between. It was a war fought by gods and demigods, by armies and sorcerers, by knights and monsters, and it reduced a golden civilization to ash and ruin. Let us walk among the combatants gently, as one walks through the ruins of a great cathedral, reverently, quietly, aware that every broken stone was once part of something magnificent. First there was Morgott, the Omen King. Born cursed, born with horns and a twisted body that the Golden Order deemed abominable. Morgott was hidden away beneath the capital, locked in the sewers with his twin brother Moog. But Morgott loved the Erdtree. He loved the Golden Order with a devotion so fierce that it transcended his own suffering. When the Shattering came, he defended Leyndell with a fanatical determination, becoming the last true protector of the capital. He did not seek the ring for himself. He sought only to keep it from those he deemed unworthy. He fought his own siblings, his own kin, and held the walls of the city against all comers. Of all the demigods, perhaps Morgott understood the tragedy of the Shattering most clearly, and perhaps that is why his story is the saddest. Then there was Radan, the Star Scourge, son of Radagon and Renala, a massive warrior who had learned gravity magic so that he might ride a tiny horse into battle. He loved his horse so much that rather than find a larger mount, he learned to hold himself above the ground with sorcery, his feet barely touching the earth. This detail, this small, almost absurd tenderness, speaks volumes about who Radan was before the war. He was a warrior, yes. He held back the very stars with his power. But he was also, in his own way, gentle. When the Shattering came, Radan fought. He fought Melania, the blade of Miquella, in a battle that would scar the landscape for eternity. Their clash in the desert of Caelid was so devastating that it poisoned the entire region. Melania unleashed the Scarlet Rot, a force of decay and rebirth that consumed everything it touched. And Radan, though he survived, was driven mad, his mind eaten away, his great body reduced to a howling, mindless thing that wandered the battlefield forever, still fighting enemies that no longer existed, still holding back the stars with the last remnants of his shattered will. Melania herself was cursed from birth with the same scarlet rot she would one day unleash. She was blind, her body constantly decaying, and yet she was one of the greatest warriors who ever lived. Her brother Michela had devoted himself to finding a cure for her curse, creating a great Erdtree as an alternative to the Erdtree, a tree that might heal what the Golden Order could not. But Michela was stolen away before his work was complete, taken by Morg to an underground dynasty, and Melania, left alone, fought with the desperate fury of someone who had nothing left to lose. Rykard, the elder brother of Radan and Rani, took a different path. Disillusioned with the Golden Order, he sought power in the forbidden, in blasphemy, in the devouring of gods. He fed himself to a great serpent, merging with it, becoming something monstrous, something that consumed everything and everyone in its endless hunger. His volcano manor became a place of rebellion and horror, a monument to what happens when a demigod decides that the only answer to a broken world is to consume it entirely. Rani, the witch, daughter of Radagon and Renala, pursued a different course altogether. She was the one most scholars believe orchestrated the Night of Black Knives. She stole a fragment of destined death. She conspired with the Black Knife assassins. She engineered the death of Godwyn, and simultaneously orchestrated the death of her own body, freeing her soul from the influence of the greater will and the two fingers. Why? Because Rani rejected the Golden Order entirely. She rejected the greater will. She rejected the very concept of a single will dictating reality from above. She sought to usher in a new age, an age of stars, an age of mystery, an age where the world would be governed not by a distant alien god, but by something colder, more distant, more free. Her plan was long and intricate, spanning the entire tragedy of the Shattering, and she pursued it with a patience that bordered on the inhuman. And then there were others. Godric the Grafted, a distant descendant of the Demigods, who grafted the limbs of stronger warriors onto his own body in a grotesque parody of strength. Morgoth's twin, Moog, who built a bloody dynasty in the depths of the earth, worshipping a formless mother goddess and waiting for Michela to awaken as his consort. Each of them claimed a great rune. Each of them fought for dominance, and none of them won. The war ground on. The lands between, already broken by the Shattering itself, were devastated by the fighting. Leyndell was besieged, Caelid was poisoned, the Academy of Raya Lucaria sealed its doors, the great highways that once connected the kingdoms fell into ruin. The people, the ordinary people, the ones who were not demigods, who did not bear great runes, suffered most of all. They wandered the roads like ghosts, their grace gone, their purpose lost, caught between factions that treated them as pawns or prey. The Erdtree watched over it all, dimmer than before, its golden light fading but not yet gone, waiting, as if it knew that eventually someone would come. Not a demigod, not a god, but something else. Someone who had been touched by grace, lost it, and then called back from beyond the fog. But that is a story for another time. Tonight, we are here to understand what happened, not to set it right. Tonight, we are here to sit with the tragedy, to let it settle into our understanding like sediment settling to the bottom of a still pond. Part 8. The meaning of the Shattering. What does it mean to shatter a world? The Elden Ring was not just a magical artifact, it was the structure of reality. To shatter it was to shatter the rules that governed existence, the rules of life and death, of cause and effect, of meaning itself. The Shattering did not just break a ring of gold, it broke the certainty that the world made sense. And maybe that is why this story resonates so deeply with us, even though it takes place in a world of fantasy and myth. Because we all know what it is like to have our certainties shattered. We all know what it is like to discover that the rules we believed in, the rules of fairness, of justice, of love that lasts forever, are not as solid as we thought. We all know what it is like to stand in the ruins of a golden age and wonder if anything can be built again.